I'm going to start our conversation so we don't waste time. Um, Now, yesterday I talked about how to talk about uh, pricing a home and how to review comps with the seller to have them hopefully come to a price point that you would desire. So I want to sort of continue that conversation all the way to closing to get them to sign. So that's where I'm starting from now. Um, so when I ask them, I do the comps, I say we review the comps, and I ask them, what do you think the value of the what do you think is the and I say market value, what do you think is the market value of your home? I say that purposefully because of the pyramid shows market value, meaning I'm trying to get them to come to what they, not what they want. I'm trying to get them because all the sellers they're going to want a certain value. Actually, I just talked to a seller today, and she's like, I literally talked to her, and she's like, your house is 300,000. It's a fixer, and she's like, well, I want 350. And I said, and why? She's like, well, I put this money in and this money in and this money. And I was like, no one cared. No offense, but no one cares how much money you put in. They care about making the house affordable for them versus the condition of the house, right? And she didn't get it, so I was like, okay, you're gonna struggle then. So um, and that's fine. And you will come across sellers like that. And that's what I want you to understand is, but what you're going to get is, did you get it, Liz?
I made you host, so I can't share. Only the host can. So you need to flag me into.
Okay, you're tagged.
Okay.
So, did you get it? So back to our discussion. We are talking about the sellers now. I'd ask them, what do you think is the market value of your home? And generally, they'll give me a pretty decent price. Now, remember, I told you when you walk into that house, you need to have three values. You need to have, if the house is pretty nice, average, or needs a lot of work, kind of framework. You need to have that understanding from the comps. Tomorrow, I will review comps so you can get to that method of how you have those comps, how you can come to that value. But you're going to have three. You walk the house, you know kind of where your market value is, and in good markets, I can play with that value a little bit. In these markets, I really can't move that value. So if I think market value is 500 and they think, John, can we do 515? 515 to 500 will kill a listing in this market. It's just because affordability is so tough right now. It'll be tough. So in this market, you really got to hold the line on your market value. So I would say most of the time I say, what do you think the market value is? I would say when I do this presentation, about 75% of the time, they ask me what my value is. Now, in the call that you had with them before the listing point, I always try to get a value in mind they have so I know if I'm above it. Generally, I mean, if I'm below it, generally I'm below what they want. So, but you got to have conviction to say your number. That's the number. Don't quaffle on your number, even though you know it's going to be lower than they want. Have conviction to say your number. That you will earn more respect for it. Okay, and then two, they will start negotiating with you off your number, not their number. At that point, they will try to push it higher sometimes, and sometimes if you think the market value is where it is where they are, sign it. And if they say, hey, you told me you were okay, you think the house is worth 515, I think the house is worth 515, I think we're in good based on what I see at the comps and what I've looked at your house, done a great job on the house, I think we can sign this right now. If you're at the market value of what they want, just close it right there. Just go to close. Just say I agree, close it. If you're not, say a number that's lower than theirs and have that discussion. Okay, now sometimes one discussion is they'll try to stay in that market value range. I've had a bunch of people like, John, can we stay in the market value range and just push it up like 510? They'll push me on that. That's up to you. You need to understand the value of the home, and if you think you can sell that by pushing it up a little, that's up to you. But you need to understand if you're capable of selling that home at that price. Okay, and that's going to be understanding comps. Two, sometimes if this money's an issue, they will push it to asking about your commission, okay? To try to push the commission down. Now, if you're getting commission objections, you need 1 to 2 commission objection handling statements to make sure that you're defending your commission. Do not cut your commission. And the number one I say is like, no, my commission is 3%. And the reason it's 3% is because, and there's people who have done with dollar bills and put out $3 and go, $1 goes to my broker, $1 goes to like, my marketing that I'm going to do to make sure I sell your home properly. And then $1 goes to me to actually pay my bills, put bread on the table for my family. So when you ask me to cut my commission, the first thing I'm going to do is I have to pay my bills. I'm not going to cut my part of it. I have to pay my broker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut your marketing, which is what I need to do to get your house the highest value that we talked about. So when you talk to a discount broker, and I can find you a bunch of brokers that would do it for less than 3%, absolutely. In fact, I can refer you to those if that's what you really want. But I can guarantee you one thing, that they're not cutting their pay and they have to pay their broker. So what are they cutting? They're going to do cell phone photos, put up a sign, and hope MetroList sells your home. And if you want that service, if you want Walmart service for your home to sell your home, that's fine. Go ahead. And I'll find you that agent, but I am not a Walmart agent, right? And I'm Nordstrom. I'm a Nordstrom's agent. I provide you the customer service. I do the best marketing. I'm going to work to find you the best offer you can, as well as multiple offers. And I use my negotiated ability to get you the best terms and offer you can. And if you want that, then it's 3%, right? And I say that, and they'll be like, and I'd say 90% of the time they drop it after that, right? So, that is one objection handler. There are other objection handlers out there, but that's one objection handler I often use. And another objection handler I've heard is like, hey, when you go to the doctor, and you have an issue, do you go to them and say, hey, doctor, I have this issue and you need to prescribe this pill to me because this is the pill that's going to work? Do you actually say that? No, you don't. You say, doctor, I have this issue. Do some tests, figure out what's wrong, prescribe something to me, right? Solve the issue. You ask for their advice. The reason I'm sitting here is you're asking for advice. You can tell from my presentation that I understand real estate and real estate sales at a very high level, and you're asking for my expertise. So if I went to their job. If I went to your job and asked you to if your employer came to your job and says, you know what, we're having tough times in the market, our sales are down. Can you just take a pay cut? Can you reduce your pay by 33%? Just because you're taking a hard one. So that's what you're asking, and I just want you to know that I pride myself on my expertise. I pride myself on bringing the best value to my clients, and I hope you see that I'm worth it. I'm worth that. And generally that shuts it down, but that is an aggressive push too if you want to do that. So but anyway, oftentimes I'm actually pushing most of my listings that I do, well, my team is at 3.5%. We're not even doing 3% anymore, 3.5%. So just FYI. Okay. So we negotiate on price. We have that conversation. And if they want to list higher, remember we talked about the bumps and stuff and how to handle those situations. That is up to you. I leave that up to you if you want to do the automatic price reduction. If you want to take the higher price just to put a sign in the yard, I would tell you, in most of my business, even if I thought it was high, if it was in North Natomas where I primarily worked, I would probably take the listing for the sign. If it was outside of North Natomas, I probably wouldn't, just because it wouldn't bring me value. Does that make sense? So that's just a choice I made. You have to make that choice to yourself, but just know it is painful to have a listing sit. The sellers will start yelling at you to get stuff done, right? And you're going to do endless amount of open houses to get things done, or pull it off the market after you spent $1,000 in marketing and pull it off the market and say we're going to sell in 4 years, right? So just FYI, that's why it's important to get on price. Now, here's the thing: how many of you take net sheets to your listing appointments? Okay. My issue is I would take net sheets. If I took net sheets, but we agreed to a different price, I would have to adjust the net sheet there. Or sometimes I was taking 2 to 3 different net sheets based on the price value of the house, right? So I started just doing net sheets on my phone, just with my calculator, show them on average. Now,
on average.
The closing costs of a seller on average in Sacramento. Now, remember, if you get to the Bay Area, Solano County and South, it's going to be different because of closing cost splits is different down in different counties. So in the general Sacramento area, it is going to be about 1.5% of the purchase price is going to be about seller closing costs. 1.5% of the purchase price is a thumbnail. Sometimes a little more if they have liens or HOAs, it could go higher, things like that. But generally, it's going to be about 1.5% closing costs to sell the home. That's escrow, title, recording fees, those sorts of stuff. Okay? Then it's going to be another whatever your commission is. So if you're 3.5%, you're 3%, then you need to add that in. So if I'm 3%, I'm 1.5% on closing costs. That's going to be 4.5%. I recommend you add in, even though it's not negotiable, I would add in a buyer's agent commission ask as well. Typically, I add in 2.5%. So I would add in 2.5% for, and I do total of 6, 2.5, 3.5 is what I typically do. You don't have to do that, but whatever your total is between the buy side and sell side, would do that, and then I would get their loan amount. How much is the payoff of their loan? Okay, and so I said, sounds like we're agreed on price. Great. Let me run some calculations here, and I literally bust out my calculator. I was trying to share it. I don't know how to share it on the screen, but anyways, um, um, I will put the calculator in there. And what you do is, if you want to bust out your calculator now, you can practice with me. What you want to do is, whatever the total percentage is, you have to do the opposite of that out of 100. So, for example, if it's 3% commission plus, say it's 6%, 6% total commission plus 1.5, that's 7.5% of the purchase price that's going to go to closing costs. That makes sense? Commissions and closing costs for the seller. So off of 100, 7.5 is 96.5%. 92.5%. 92.5%. So you have to take whatever say they're at 500,000, you type in 500,000 in on your calculator, then you times it by 0.925, whatever that percentage is. Does it make sense? Is everyone following me? 0.925. That's going to get you the net after closing costs. And then I ask them, and I'm there, hey, do you know your exact loan amount that you need to pay off? And sometimes I'll look it up, sometimes they know. They'll say, hey, it's about 325,000. Then I minus from that net proceeds 325,000. And I literally type that on my phone and on my calculator. And then when I'm done, I literally turn around my phone and I show them that number and I say, if we sell your home at this price and closing costs are going to be about 1.5%, and my commission's 3.5. I'm assuming 6% in commissions, and you told me your loan amount is 325 to pay off. If that comes true, then your estimated payoff amount would be this amount, and I literally show my phone. How does that look? I literally ask them that look. I literally put the number that they're going to take home that's going to be wired to them at close of escrow in front of them. And I say, how does that look? And generally, if there is a negotiation, it's negotiating off the net. Make sense? Off that net to them. So if it's negotiations like, John, can we push that up 1,000 or 2,000 more? I'm like, usually fine. I'll figure it out. I'll counter the closing costs so I get you 1,000 or 2,000 more. I'll work the offer differently to make it work like that. In this market, though, I would also assume a credit. Also approximately, $10,000, 2 to 3% of the purchase price. I'd assume a credit in that calculation too. Just let your sellers know that. And I put it in front of them. And there's some things that are super powerful about doing that versus bringing out a net sheet. Although I do have a net sheet with me if they want to see the details, but I do it on the phone. Super power. If you do it on a calculator and just show them, It does two things. It makes you look like an expert because experts know the numbers so well, they can just do it on a calculator. They don't need a sheet. Does it make sense? And that's how subconsciously people view it. It's adding to that you show up as an expert feel if you can do it on your phone directly. Does it make sense?
Could we get like a sample sheet just to
Yeah, I find this math part is really horrible. So literally, I will send you an email
okay.
um, on how to like type it in your phone. Right? Type in this amount, type in this amount, right? So okay,
Thank
and
you.
so and then that way you can start practicing that on your phone. Um, and I would literally and because I want to get them off the list price. I want to get them off. I want to get them on net because net is really what they really care about, right? And that way the discussion gets off of are we too high or too low on the list price? It really goes, how do I get them to net what they want? If I'm off on net, meaning if they want more money than they're netting, they say we need more money. I ask them why. What are you trying to accomplish? They will generally list obviously pay off the loan, but they'll like, we want to get rid of this car loan. We want this down payment. We want to do that. They'll start going into their finances on this level, right? And often they're miscalculating how much money they need for the purchase side. So oftentimes if I wade into the purchase side, I can find more money for them. Like, hey, look, if we're going to offer with a 10,000 credit. So you can take 10,000 off on that side. So you can often save money somewhere else that they're not thinking about that you could resolve for them that will help them as well. I mean, that will make them accept your net number, even though it's lower than they thought they needed, right? So a lot of times wading into how do they came to that net number is going to be a better discussion because now it's about their finances and not the listing price. So now you're in their world, not that world. So how many people? Okay, so that's how I close it. Generally, I say if they say yeah, that net is good, I don't even say. I say sign here. I literally push out the listing agreement and say sign initial here, initial here, initial here. So, any questions on this presentation? Who thinks they can do this conversation track and feel confident doing it? So now I will say this whole presentation is a very confident presentation, right? you can't do this week. If you do this week, it's not going to work. You're going to come off as arrogant, right? You gotta, this is a strong track to talk, but I guarantee like I have like a 98, 99% listing to close rate. I mean, listing to sign rate, right? I close my listings, right? So I get my listing signed. So, any questions, ahas about this process so far? So
It's a huge aha.
just hold on. Yeah. And you can see these little things are how you show value. Remember, as a real estate agent, people want value for money. You are the value, and your value is your expertise, your understanding, your consultation, your advice. That is your value, and the better you can show it and bring it in that presentation is how you engender the trust to get that 3%, to get the listing price you want, right? So, make sense? All right. I will put an email out with the math just so you can get good on that part. Two, tomorrow we're going to talk about comps. We're going to talk about how to come to a value and come to the three versions of a value. I won't even use any of my listings. You give me a listing or give me an address that you're talking about, one of you, and I will work that listing just so you see it works on any property. And just like I did the comps, I pulled up that random comps the other day and it still justified my story of how I talked about pricing. And even random comps showed that same story, right? You need to be confident in wherever comps you get to, but you need to get confident in what is the list price, what is the market value, and what's the high, what's the medium, and what's the low. And you get there. So we'll talk about that tomorrow.